we'll show you what is going on here. Moscow was not hit by Neptune. Russia delivers ultimatum to the U.S. Talks about global consequences. A two-page verbal statement was sent to the State Department by the Russian embassy in Washington. Russia warns Washington for the first time of unforeseen consequences if it continues to equip Ukraine. This development comes after the loss of the Russian cruiser Moskva. According to Russian media, Putin was informed overnight about the loss of the ship. Putin was furious in a way we have never seen him before, Russian sources said. According to the same information, Russian officials told him that the Russian cruise missile, Ukrainian anti-ship missile Neptune, did not hit, noting that the attack was made with NATO weapons. NATO weapons, photographing the British behind the attack using Harpoon missiles. It should be noted here that all Russian analysts report that the story with Neptune is not convincing. It is impossible for this rocket to have caused such colossal damage to Moscow. Russia says, Russia and the U.S. unforeseen consequences. Russia has warned the United States that there will be unforeseen consequences if Washington continues to supply arms to Ukraine, according to a Washington Post report today. That was a couple days ago. The Russian diplomatic statement is 2 pages long. The Russian document was sent to the State Department by the Russian embassy in Washington. We call on the United States and its allies to stop the irresponsible militarization of Ukraine, which has unintended consequences for regional and global security. The paper quoted Russia as saying in a statement sent to the United States. According to the Washington Post, the State Department declined to comment. The day before yesterday, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, in an interview with TASS news agency, had stated that the Russians would consider U.S. and NATO vehicles carrying weapons on Ukrainian territory as legitimate targets. Russian media, NATO operation, the attack on the Moskva cruiser was carefully planned joint operation of the armed forces of the Ukraine and Western countries, including the armed forces of Ukraine. Troops from Britain, Canada, and Australia participated. The British technically supported the missile attack. Canadians and Australians also participated. There is no Neptune. These are maintained by some to encourage the Ukrainians and to strengthen Poroshenko. Under the leadership, this anti-ship missile was built. It is obvious that they were expecting bad weather in the area to launch the attack. They were waiting for a severe storm to occur so that other ships of the Russian Navy would not easily approach and help. It seems that they did not want survivors either. They said they flew the United States U.S. Global Hawk area and RC-135s to guide the Neptune. In any case, they monitor the area 24 hours a day from the territory of Bulgaria and Romania. So, folks, Russia is saying that this was not 2 Neptune missiles. They were 2 Harpoon missiles, and that NATO had a large part in the sinking of Russia's flagship, folks. And Putin is pissed. He's pissed, folks, because like I told you before, like Scott Ritter will tell you if you watch those 3 videos, that Russia is not fighting Ukraine, folks. I've told you this from day one. Russia is fighting NATO in Ukraine. Russia is fighting NATO in Ukraine. These are NATO weapons. There are NATO advisors, NATO military personnel in Ukraine directing the order of battle. They're giving intelligence from NATO satellites. The battle in Ukraine is being ran by NATO, not by Ukrainian military folks. So what has happened since this battleship has sunk? Well, Russia has shot down an airplane, a NATO airplane coming in, flying weapons into Ukraine. I want to find that article for you. We got so many articles coming in. Let's see if I can find this for you. So let me get this next article up. a lot of things are happening. I'm sorry. I missed the last couple of days, folks. I couldn't help it. I wasn't physically able to do a video for you guys, so we're going to try to catch you up tonight. So this is what has happened in the last couple of days, and let me get it up on the big screen for you guys. Russia shoots down transport aircraft loaded with weapons. Finally, Mariupol, they threw Fab 3000 to the Azov-fights. So this is the current news that Russia has shot down. This has been confirmed by the Russian Ministry of Defense that they have indeed shot down a very large cargo plane. Russia shot down for the first time a transport aircraft that, according to it, was carrying weapons from NATO countries. The shooting took place over Odessa. The type of aircraft have not yet been announced. Kiev has not commented or confirmed the Russian announcement. In any case, this means a change of attitude in Moscow, which will now throw in whatever it seems. The Russian air defense system in the Odessa region shot down a military transport aircraft carrying a large consignment of weapons and military equipment supplied to Ukraine by Western countries, the Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement. At the same time, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that the outskirts and the city of Mariupol has been cleared. Only the Azovstal steel plant remains, and the information about the Ukrainians is not good. There are videos with dozens of dead. The Russians dropped dozens of bombs from strategic bombers. For obvious reasons, we will not transfer the images. Mariupol is cleared. The entire urban area of Mariupol has been cleared, the Russian Defense Ministry said. Specifically, the representative of the Russian Foreign Affairs stated the entire urban area of Mariupol has been completely cleared of Azov forces, foreign mercenaries, and Ukrainian troops. Their remains are currently excluded from the territory of the Azovstal metallurgical plant. Their only chance to save their lives is to voluntarily lay down their arms and surrender. Zelensky recently issued a statement asking not to kill the trapped soldiers. So Russia has stepped up their game ever since NATO blew up their main warship. Now they're bringing out the big bombs, 3,000-pound bombs, folks. Today, Russian media reported that Tu-22M3 strategic bombers have dropped the Fab 500 bombs and several of the Fab 3000 heavy bombs. They specifically mentioned the Russian planes destroyed several underground communication corridors and large galleries, with the help of which Azov groups moved from one place. Its perimeter is more than 15 kilometers to another. So there is no information how many fighters may be under the records after the airstrikes. Victory at all cost. At the same time, reliable information was received that there are no citizens on the territory of the factory. This makes it impossible to conduct operations against Azov fighters and their affiliates using a wide range of weapons. The Russian Air Force used up to 50 large caliber bombs against Ukrainian armed groups in Azovstal plant. There are dozens of Fab 500s and several heavy-duty Fab 3000. This is the first time that Russia media has confirmed the use of the Soviet-made FAB 3000 bombs with an explosive warhead of 1,400 kilograms. These bombs were in strategic storage as they were built in 1946, folks. These bombs were built in 1946. The Fab 3000 M46 are designed to bomb industrial facilities, underground facilities, and dams. The last time this bomb was used was in Afghanistan. So Russia is pulling out their heavy weapons. According to a lot of articles, that they are bombing right now the steel plant. They didn't want to do it, folks. They gave them an opportunity of about 24 hours for all of these Azov battalion, these neo-Nazis, to surrender, and they did not surrender. So they could have surrendered their weapons and came up and be prisoners of war, but they chose not to. So now Russia is resorting to bombing with these bunker-busting bombs, the last holdouts in Mariupol, folks. 99.9% of the Ukrainian military is gone out of Mariupol. The only remaining fighters are underground, this steel plant, the Avastal plant, and now they are bombing the hell out of it. And there probably won't be anybody left. So once Mariupol is completely cleared, they're probably going to move on to Donbass and start that operation. But a lot of things have transpired, folks. There's so many things going on. I just want to read you. We're going to go try to get through this really quick tonight, but I want to bring you all the information that we can in the short time that we have. That Russia is about to launch one of their latest ICBMs, their RS-28 Sarmat, because they want to show the world that if you do not take us seriously, there will be severe consequences. So I just want to revert back to a couple of weeks ago. President Vladimir Putin is serious. He does not bluff when he tells the world what he's going to do. And unfortunately, Anthony Blinken, our State Department, Jens Stoltenberg, all the people in NATO have not taken Vladimir Putin serious when he warns the world what he is about to do. And that's going to be to their detriment. So Russia knows, folks, they know they're fighting NATO. They know they're not naive. They know exactly who is fighting in Ukraine. They know they are fighting NATO. They're not Ukrainian troops because the weapons are being supplied by NATO. The battle is being directed by NATO. NATO is giving Ukrainian military intelligence. NATO has commanders on the ground directing the battle, folks. So Russia is not fighting Ukraine. They're fighting NATO in Ukraine. NATO is using the Ukrainian people to further their goal, and they don't really care, folks, if every Ukrainian dies, just as long as they defeat Russia, folks. You know, please watch that video. Please go back and watch the video I just posted before this one of Scott Ritter. There are 3 interviews, folks. 3 interviews. Please watch all 3 of those videos. You're going to learn the truth. That NATO is using Ukraine to further their goals. They could care less about the Ukrainian people, folks. They could. They don't give a crap about Ukraine. They're using them to fight Russia. And Russia knows that. That's why this battle is going to escalate. That's why it is eventually going to escalate, and it's going to get very dangerous for the world. Russia is going to launch one of their latest missiles, let me get it back on the screen, the RS-28 Sarmat. They're going to launch this latest missile. They said one of these missiles can take out the entire state of Texas. The firepower, the nuclear warheads on this one missile can destroy the entire state of Texas. Just one of these missiles launched. They're going to be replacing their entire ICBMs with this new missile, folks. They haven't done it yet. They're in the process, but they already have deployed some of these around Russia. But one of these missiles, folks, this is the biggest ICBM in the world. This is the most powerful nuclear weapon ever created that Russia has just created. The RS-28 Sarmat. So I think that we're just going to keep on poking that Russian bear, folks. We're going to keep on poking it till Russian finally just goes boom, boom, it's over. You know, that's my opinion. You can disagree with me, but if you look at things happening on the ground, we're not going to give up. NATO is fighting Russia in Ukraine. That's what this war is about. It's always been about that. It's not whether we care anything about Ukraine, folks, just like all of these other countries. This will escalate. I do believe it's going to escalate. And let me just read you a little bit about this. Poland's emergency plan for nuclear attack. Putin orders silos to be open. The RS-28 Sarmat launched due to the Moskva. Poland has drawn up an emergency plan to ensure the continuation of the government and the war in the event of a nuclear attack by Russia. The revelation was made by former U.S. Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller during a meeting with Polish officials. In essence, we are talking about a red alert in Poland. We have never been so close to implementing nuclear bombing contingency plans. This development raises many questions, as the first to speak at length about a nuclear strike against Poland was General Wesley Clark, who served as commander of the U.S. European Command, Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. The reasonable question is, what exactly do the Americans know and since when? The next few days are crucial. Russian information speaks of a test launch in the coming days of the intercontinental ballistic missile, the RS-28 Sarmat. This means that Russia will have strategic nuclear forces on hand, so this nuclear shield will be activated for any conventional NATO convoy bombing. Poland's nuclear strike contingency plan. Former U.S. Secretary of State Defense Donald Trump's Christopher Miller has returned from a 30-hour trip to Ukraine, during which he spoke with several Russian officials. He then revealed what the discussions took place. The Ukrainians have made it clear that they want 5 types of equipment from the West: long-range missile systems, air defense systems that can strike aircraft at high altitudes, Air Force, tanks, and fighter jets. In talks with 5 Ukrainian Army, Defense, and Secret Service officials, Miller revealed that Kiev was moving away from the guerrilla warfare and insurgency survival plan to one focused on a long-term conventional battle. They tell me we don't need any more javelins, we don't need any more Stingers. What we need is heavier equipment. Miller then also made a stop in Warsaw to speak with Polish officials. Christopher Miller, the former U.S. Secretary of Defense, revealed that Poland has taken steps to ensure the continuation of the government, the COG, in case the Russian launch a nuclear attack against Polish territory. At one point, a senior Polish official spoke in detail about the continuation of military operations in the event of Poland being hit by a nuclear weapon. From these talks, it becomes clear how much Poland fears that it will be attacked along with the Baltic countries by Russia. Miller's feeling from the Poles was this is a reality, very serious. If Ukraine falls, we are next. Silos are open. RS-28 Sarmat launch. Russia is reported to be launching a test launch of the RS-28, a Sarmat ICBM, which will replace the Soviet R-36M2, the Voyvoda missile. It is noted that the U.S. canceled the test launch of the ICBM LGM Minuteman III, according to the Russian information, by April 24th. By April 24th, a Sarmat ICBM test launch will take place from the Pulaski in the Arkhangelsk region, with a final destination of being the Kura training field in Kamchatka. The RS-28 Sarmat strategic weapon with multiple vehicle entry warheads. The Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missiles replaces the PC-20B Satan missiles. Work on the new rocket began in 2009. The RS-28, codenamed NATO SSX-29 or XX-30, has a liquid fuel engine and can carry a multiple entry vehicle head. It is one of 6 new Russian strategic weapons presented by Putin in 2028. The Sarmat can carry a weapons load of up to 10 tons or 10 heavy or 15 lighter MIRV warheads, multiple sounding missiles, and a combination of all of the above. So, folks, Russia is going to test this missile, and let me give you just a short video. I think, let me see if you can see this. This is what the missile actually looks like. And let me go ahead and play this for you. I think you can. I think you can see this on your screen. So this is their latest nuclear missile, folks. All of the stuff that we have in our inventory is 30 years old, but Russia has been redoing their entire arsenals across the board. This is their latest nuclear missile. So let's go on. So there's so many things happening in the world. The sinking of Russia's flagship in the Black Sea was one of these things that a new line has been crossed. A new line in the war has been crossed that NATO has supplied, it looks like, Ukraine with Harpoon missiles, the latest NATO weapon, to sink their flagship. Folks, there's only been one other flagship, I think, that was sunk in World War II, but this is very strategic. This was done to humble Putin, or what's the word for it? Humiliate. How do you say that? Humiliate. This was done to humiliate Putin in Russia by sinking their flagship. So now NATO has crossed a new line, and Russia responded immediately by shooting down that NATO plane coming into Ukraine to give them new arms. So Russia has also been bombing other Western targets in Western Ukraine. They pulled out their Soviet era 3000 Fab 3000 bombs. They're using them now. I think Russia is fixing to take the white gloves off. They're fixing to take the white gloves off, and they're fixing to get down to the nitty gritty. That Russia, they did not do what the United States did in Iraq, folks. When we went into Iraq, we took out the bridges, we took out the roads, we took out their electricity supplies, we took out the water stations, we took out all of their communications, we took out all of that. Russia did not do that, folks. Russia left everything intact in Ukraine. They could have done the same thing, but they were trying to denazify the country. They were trying to get rid of these Nazis. They weren't trying to destroy the whole country of Ukraine like the United States did in Iraq. For over a month, we bombed the hell out of Iraq. We took out everything. We took out everything, folks. We destroyed the roads, the bridges, the water stations, their power stations, the communications. We left them with nothing. We totally decimated their country. And we killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in the process. Russia did not do that. They were only striking military targets in Ukraine. So now I think the gloves are coming off since NATO has crossed this line. NATO, it does look like they're going to intervene directly by sending all of these weapons systems. We reported our last video that NATO is even considering sending the Predator and the Reaper drones, folks, are top of the line drones with Hellfire missiles into Ukraine. So this is fixing to get very serious in the next 2 or 3 weeks, folks. I do believe that this battle is going to escalate and escalate and escalate. And I do believe that Poland could be a target, maybe being even struck by a low yield tactical nuclear weapon, folks, just to send a message to NATO. Poland is the major staging ground for NATO. That's where all the weapons are being shipped. And then from Poland, they're being shipped and funneled into Ukraine. So that would only make sense. But like I told you before, please go to the last video I put up on Off Grid. Watch those 3 videos by Scott Ritter. You're going to learn a lot more information than I can give you tonight. Folks, this guy is a Marine Corps intelligence, our Marine Corps military intelligence. He went to Iraq. He's been around a long time. He worked for the UN in disarmament. Folks, the guy's an expert. He knows what he's talking about. He's going to tell you what exactly happening in Ukraine. So let's go on to another article. We do have a lot of information tonight. So I think we already told you about this, that Ukraine is now bombing that steel plant where the Azov battalions are. So this next article is about the economies of Europe. Now, right from the start, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States and NATO put all of these sanctions on Russia, trying to cripple their economy, trying to destroy their economy. And now we see that this is backfiring on Europe and the United States. Prices are going through the roof in Europe right now, in France and Germany, in the United Kingdom, and all of these NATO countries. Prices are going through the roof, folks. Their energy bills, when they go to fill up their gas tank with gas, their food prices, their prices for heating their homes, supplying electricity, they're going through the roof. And this is just the beginning. Russia supplies 40% of all of Europe's natural gas and oil, folks. You cannot just snap your finger and replace 40% of an energy resource just by wishing it, by clicking your heels together 3 times and saying, we have plenty of natural gas. We have plenty of natural gas, and boom, there it appears. It doesn't work like that. It's going to take 5 to 10 years to put in infrastructure around the world to supply what Russia was supplying, folks. It's going to shut their factories down. I believe by the end of April, going into May, that you're going to see major economic upheaval in Europe, in these NATO countries, because they won't have any gas to run their factories, especially in Germany, which is the economic engine of Europe, folks. Germany is the economic engine. Germany, France, and the UK. So this is going to hurt them worse than the sanctions they have put on Russia, trying to destroy their country. Russia has many of buyers for their oil and gas and coal, folks. China. Right now, China is buying a lot of that excess gas and oil. India, the country of India, has bought a year's worth of natural gas and oil in 1 month, folks, and the United States is ticked off about that. We sent envoys to India to tell them to quit it. But Russia is giving India and China and other nations deep discounts. They're cutting the price and giving them these deep discounts if they'll buy their oil and gas. And that's what they're doing. Nations around the world, Brazil, Hungary, which is a NATO member, Turkey, which is a NATO member. So NATO is starting to fracture. Where this ends, no one knows, but just keep an eye on the end of April and going into May. You're going to see major economic upheavals in Europe. You're probably going to see food riots. You're going to see the people in Europe start to rise up against their governments because they don't want to pay 100, 200, 300% more for their gas that they put in their car or the food that they're buying, folks. They're not going to put up with it. They're not going to put up with it for a long time, for a long duration. They're going to vote their leaders out or overthrow their leaders somehow. They're going to have a no confidence vote and elect a new government. Wait and see, folks. They can't go on. I mean, how can you replace 40% like that? You can't do it. So that's what Europe is facing right now. They're facing a real economic crisis. And I'm going to read you this article. Let me get it on the screen. This is Dmitry Medvedev. He was the president of Russia for a while. He took over for Putin years ago, and he's still in the Russian government. So let me read you just a little bit about this and get up on the screen. Russia responds to EU's bankruptcy predictions. Russia's default could turn into Europe's default. Dmitry Medvedev says anti-Ursula. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has warned the Brussels Machozefs that they will have to change their rhetoric if the Russian debt default they predict ends up turning into bankruptcy, both moral and material, of the European Union. So let me tell you this, folks. A lot of people don't know this. Russia has the money to pay their debts. They have the money, but Europe and the United States is not going to allow Russia to pay in rubles. The United States and NATO wants Russia to default. They want them to default, even though Russia has plenty of money to pay their foreign debt. They have the money, but they want to make a statement before the world. They want to tell the whole world, look, Russia has defaulted. Russia said we'll pay our debt, but we're going to have to pay it in rubles. And we have denied letting them pay in rubles. So we want this to happen so we can give them more bad publicity. Look, Russia doesn't pay their bill. They're defaulting on their debt. And Russia has told them that we'll pay our debt. So, like I said, all of this stuff is twisted. It's propaganda twisted on our side to make them look bad. Anything that we can do to make them look bad, that's what we're going to do. It's called a propaganda war, folks. But the truth is out there. But anyway, Dmitry Medvedev is telling the world that if Russia goes bankrupt, then it might take European Union down with them. Noting that Auntie Ursula has been talking a lot about an imminent Russian default, Medvedev suggested that it was something that the EU politicians secretly dreamed about at night. This is the deep strategy of the European Union. The secret intention of the machinistas, I can't pronounce that, masochists from Brussels and their partners in games from across the ocean, the U.S., Medvedev wrote in a post. The former president warned the EU leaders that any Russian default could turn into both a moral and quite possibly material default of the bloc itself. The financial system in the European Union is not quite stable. People's confidence is falling, and it didn't shake so much even in the memorial year of 2008, and back then it was very difficult, he said, referring to the so-called Great Financial Crash. So he's telling Europe and the United States that if you cause us to default, this could boomerang back on your own country and cause your own country to go bankrupt, folks. But everything is going to come to a head by the end of this month, going into next month, when Europe starts running real low on natural gas and oil. Then you're going to see the people of France, Germany, and the United Kingdom rise up because they don't have enough money, folks. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that you go to Walmart or whatever grocery store that you go to. Okay, and most people that do grocery shopping are women. I would say probably 80%, maybe 80 or 90% of people that go grocery shopping, they're women. You know, they got their kids with them. So they go grocery shopping in Albertsons or Walmart or wherever you go, and they spend about $250 on a buggy of groceries. So what happens if these same people in America go to the grocery store and instead of spending $250, they're spending $1,000 on the same buggy of groceries? I don't know, but it eventually could get that way. I'm just trying to tell you, in some countries in Europe, the price is already doubled, tripled, and quadrupled for food prices in the grocery stores. So what if a $250 buggy of groceries now costs $1,000? What if when you go to fill your gas tank up, it usually costs you about $40? Now it's over $100. People are not going to put up with that for too long. And that's exactly what is happening in Europe right now. The prices and inflation is called hyperinflation. It's going through the roof because of the energy needs. The supply chains are breaking down. We tried to explain you this, our last broadcast, that when the supply chains break down, everything becomes higher in price because of the shortage. And by the way, this is man-made, folks. This is man-made supply chain shortages. There is coming a famine upon the world, whether you want to realize it or not. Russia and Ukraine produces like 60 to 75% of all the fertilizers that they ship around the world, and America too. We import a lot of fertilizers from Russia and Ukraine to fertilize our crops. The world depends upon that fertilizer to grow crops. They said without the fertilizer, they're going to get maybe a 50% yield of their crop instead of 100% yield, folks. This is going to affect the world's food supply. Now we have this bird flu going on in America and around the world. They've killed over 30 million chickens. You're seeing a very large price increase in the price of a carton of eggs. So this is going to increase and increase and increase And I don't think this war in Ukraine is going to be over anytime soon. So let's go on. Zero Hedge is reporting that we still haven't reached the inflation finale. Inflation has been an inbuilt mechanism that works to burn them out. Governments, including the central bank, cannot thwart the mechanism if they resort to further monetary injections of sufficient power. So I'm not going to read the article. It is very long. But folks, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of the inflationary cycle that we're going to see. And I do a lot of building. I was a contractor when I was working. We used to flip houses. I used to do repairs on people's homes. We did remodeling. We did kitchen remodelings. Folks, whatever you can do to a house, I did. I did roofing, drywall, kitchen, bathroom remodels, tile, everything. Anyway, the price of building materials has went through the roof, skyrocketed. The price of a sheet of plywood used to be $10 for the regular plywood. Now it's $55 for a half-inch sheet. A 2x4 used to be $2 to $3. Now it's $8, $9, $10 for a 2x4 by 8. So inflation is hitting America. And that is why you're seeing the average price for a new home is about $300,000 and up now. For a new house, folks, anyone going to purchase a new home, the prices are skyrocketing because the building materials are going through the roof. Well, they're selling those for high prices too. So let's keep on going. So I'm trying to get you another article. We have so much information. I'm going to try to keep it under 2 hours tonight. And Adrian says, thank God. Maybe we'll try to get off even. We're almost been on an hour, and I haven't even got to 2 or 3 articles yet. So let me read you this. We were just talking about this. Support for Russian sanctions drop amid inflation poll. So let me get this on the big screen for you guys, and you can read along with us. The soaring cost of living in the United Kingdom appears to have overshadowed concern for Ukraine. The number of Britons advocating harsh economic sanctions against Russia in response to its military campaign in Ukraine has dropped over the past month, as revealed by the latest opinion poll conducted by Redfield and Wilton Strategies and commissioned by the Sunday Telegraph. The survey indicates that only 36% of the respondents polled this week are prepared to accept higher fuel prices in order to hurt Russia more. 14% points down from 50% in March. A third of the Britons surveyed replied in the negative when they asked if they were willing to pay more for food to help Ukraine withstand the Russian offense. Another third, however, said it was a sacrifice worth making. Around 54% of the respondents reported worsening of their financial situation in the last year, up from 42% 2 months ago, and 62% said they expect the further to be even bleaker. More than 2/3 of Britons say they have not received a pay raise despite the growing cost of living, and most those who did receive a raise said it's not enough to offset the inflation. Based upon these latest findings, the Telegraph surmised that the personal financial woes may now have overshadowed concern over Russia's military offensive against Ukraine in the eyes of the general public in the United Kingdom. So, folks, this is spreading all around to Europe and France and Germany. It's getting crazy. And I'm trying to find another article for you guys. So I'm going to switch gears right now. We're going to talk about China just for a few minutes and give you an update on what is happening in China. It looks like that the government of Taiwan has issued warnings to their citizens that there could be a war very shortly with China. So let me get that on the screen for you guys, and we'll go over this. Red alert in Taiwan gives war survival manual to people moving Chinese forces with the U.S. message. So let me get this on the big screen so you guys can see this. So this news is coming in from War News 24/7. Taiwan has raised the level of war alarm as intense military activity is observed in all the provinces of eastern China located opposite the island. Movement of tanks, armor, and soldiers of the Chinese army have been identified. According to information, the residents have been asked to be provided with food and basic necessities. Maybe we are gradually approaching the 0 hour of the Chinese invasion of Taiwan. However, the news is not good for both the U.S. and Taiwan. A recent U.S. study showed that the Chinese army can launch thousands of missiles in just the first day, crashing the Taiwanese army in a matter of hours. In addition, the U.S. points out that if China launches a surprise ballistic missile attack on Taiwan off the Fujian coast, Taipei will have a maximum of only 5 minutes and 31 seconds to transport their President T to a safe location and activate defense policy plans. War Survival Manual for Civilians. The Taiwanese military has released a war survival manual for citizens as tensions with China escalate. China has never renounced the use of force to bring Taiwan under its control and has stepped up its military activities over the past 2 years to force it to accept its claims of sovereignty. The Taiwanese guide describes how the civilian population will find shelter through smartphone apps, how they will be protected from the bombs, how they will collect water and food supplies, as well as tips for preparing emergency first aid kits. The handbook uses comments and pictures to describe how civilians will survive a military offensive. So, folks, this is being put out right now in Taiwan. It says that the Taiwanese military has detected troop movements across the island in mainland China of tanks and all of this equipment, folks. So China might be ready to drop the hammer. There could be an invasion in the coming days or weeks. I don't know. But I told you, once Russia attacks Ukraine, then probably China will go after Taiwan. North Korea could even go after South Korea. And then we could also see a war in the Middle East. So this is getting just ramped up, folks. This is just a start. I do believe that this will eventually escalate into a full-blown world war involving most of the nations of the world. And if China does decide to invade Taiwan in the coming weeks, then we are there, folks. We're in the end times. Jesus Christ is coming back. We are living the book of Revelation. A lot of people that said that this is the last Ramadan, I have heard people say that this is the last Ramadan that will ever be. And was it you that said Easter, Ramadan, and what was the other one?
Passover and a Hindu holiday too.
There's a Hindu holiday, Ramadan, and the Christian holiday all falling on the same days. In Passover, the Jewish holiday all falling on the same date. And I don't know if that has ever happened again. So we're living in biblical times, folks. We're living in biblical times. And things are going to accelerate, and it's not going to be good for the world. I'm just going to read you some of the titles of this. Let's go back to the Moskva. And I don't know why that changed. And I don't know where it went. Okay, hold on, folks. We'll see if we can get you the right article up here. It's not doing it. Anyway, we'll go to the next article. We'll take that one off. All right, Russia is warning that Ukraine is preparing another rocket attack on civilians. So this was actually a couple days ago. Moscow gives details of Kiev's plan to massacre civilians and blame Russia. So let me read you a little bit about this, folks. You guys need to know this information. You know, Russia is putting out the information before it happens just to show you of these false flags that are being perpetrated by the Ukrainian military and then blamed on Russia. And I told you before that you need to go watch those 3 videos by Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter gave an excellent analysis of how the Bucha massacre that Joe Biden came on and told the world that Putin is committing genocide was actually performed by the Ukrainian military and the Azov neo-Nazis. Folks, he lays it out. Go watch the evidence, folks. Go watch these videos that I post. I don't do this just for fun. I do this to inform you. If you want to know the truth, then review the information that I provide for you. That the bodies that they showed on the street, the so-called 300 bodies that they said that Russia slaughtered, these civilians, were actually shot the day before or the same day. The blood was fresh. The bodies were not bloated. The bodies did not explode because they were rotting for 3 weeks. These were freshly killed civilians on the street, and he explains why they did that. Because he said that Russia was giving out food packets, was giving food to the civilians, and anyone that was caught with a Russian food box, the humanitarian food that they were giving out while they were in the city, was declared a Russian sympathizer and shot on the spot. Folks, go to the videos and watch the evidence. This guy's not lying to you. I'm not lying to you. This massacre in Bucha, these 300 people, was not done by the Russian military. It was done by the Ukrainian neo-Nazis and blamed on Russia. This is propaganda. And Russia is telling the world that they're fixing to do it again. You don't have to believe me. You can believe the Western news media. You can believe Joe Biden. Joe Biden tells the truth, doesn't he? Ukraine preparing another rocket attack on civilians. Russia warns. Moscow gives details of Kiev's plan to massacre civilians and blame Russia. Now, all of these Tocha missiles that you're watching right here on the left, folks, Russia does not use these missiles anymore. And what they're doing, they're taking the serial numbers off of the missile. They're taking the serial numbers off of these missiles, and they're tracking it back to Ukrainian missile supplies, folks. The last false flag that Ukraine did, they launched a missile into a train station, killing 30 people. They blamed it on Russia. But Russia came out, they got the serial number off the missile, and they tracked it back to Ukrainian supplies. Ukraine uses this Tocha missile. Russia does not use this missile system in the war. So Ukraine's launching these missiles and then blaming Russia on it, just like the theater, when the theater in Mariupol was attacked. It wasn't Russia attacking the theater, folks. It was Ukraine. You can believe whoever you want. Watch Patrick Lancaster. Patrick Lancaster has a YouTube channel with over 300,000 subscribers. He goes out every day in the neighborhoods and he tells you what is actually happening in Mariupol and Donetsk and all of these other regions, folks. He's been there. He's on the ground. He goes right when these things are happening. And he covered the Mariupol theater explosion. He covered it. He interviewed people on the ground, folks. I don't know how much more information, accurate information, that you need to learn what is actually going on. These are false flag attacks, and they will continue, folks. Listen, this is April the 17th, 2020. I'm going to put this out here. There is a possibility that NATO and the United States will do a false flag attack in the United States and blame it on Russia. This will probably be on the equivalent of 9/11. I do believe that there is a possibility of a major false flag attack committed on U.S. soil and then blamed on Russia in the coming months to get us into this war, to give Joe Biden, our Pentagon, and NATO an excuse to drop the hammer on Russia, folks. I believe it. I believe it's coming. It's either going to be in the United States and Poland or in Ukraine, something so horrible that kills thousands of people and then be blamed on Russia like 9/11 was. I think it's coming, folks. That way we can have the full access to the complete NATO power. Folks, NATO cannot allow Russia to win in Ukraine. They cannot allow that. They cannot allow Russia to defeat the Donbass forces. And then they'll have their easy way back to Kiev, folks. They cannot let Russia win this war coming up in the Donbass area. They got to do whatever it takes to defeat Russia in Ukraine using the Ukrainians, sacrificing the poor Ukrainian people for the benefit of NATO. Just like the title of our video says. You know, it says it all, the title of our video. NATO ready to fight Russia and Ukraine and sacrifice every Ukrainian to reach its goal. Folks, that's what's happening. And you can call me any name in the book, folks. I'm telling you the truth. I have no reason to lie to you. Why should I lie to you? There's nobody paying my salary. Nobody's paying me to do this. I do it because I want you to know the truth, whether you want to believe the truth or not. This is not about Ukraine. This has nothing to do with Ukraine, folks. Ukraine could have avoided all of this by declaring their country neutral. By declaring their country neutral, there would not have been a war. But NATO wanted this war so they could fight them in Ukraine and defeat them in Ukraine. This is all about NATO and the aspirations of NATO defeating Russia and carving up their country and stealing their resources. Whether you believe it or not, you don't have to believe me. Adrian don't believe me. Adrian's on the side of Ukraine. Adrian stands with Ukraine. I want to let you guys know. Adrian stands 100% Ukraine. She thinks I'm full of BS, basically. And she's agreeing with that on the couch right now. She stands with Ukrainian people, but I stand for the truth. So we have a house divided in our house. We have a lot of arguments over Ukraine and Russia, folks, because I'm telling you what I see from the truth. But, you know, that's okay. You know, that's okay. That's what marriage is all about. Nobody agrees with everything the other person agrees with. But I'm giving you information from my point of view. Other people have different opinions. You don't have to believe me. You can believe whatever you want. You know, that's what makes America great. So let me go ahead and give you another article. So this is coming in from Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge. A lot of you guys are probably laughing. Adrian's sitting over there giggling right now. So anyway, folks, you know, that's what we go through. We used to be a happy couple, or maybe, I don't know. We're coming up on 32 years of being married here in what, 3 days? We'll be married 32 years, folks, on Wednesday. That's our 32nd wedding anniversary. She hasn't killed me yet, folks, but give her a chance. Adrian said there's still time. She hasn't killed me yet, but there's still time. So anyway, let me get this new article on the screen. All right, so hopefully you can see that on the big screen. Let me pull this down for you. Russia long-range bombers strike Ukraine for the first time in the war. For the first time since February the 24th invasion, it is being widely reported that the Russian military has struck Ukrainian targets using long-range bombers. Ukrainian Defense Ministry spokesman Oleksandr Motozek, I'm sorry I massacre these names, folks, I barely speak English, said Friday that bombs were dropped by Tu-22 M3 aircraft over positions in the port city of Mariupol. On April 14th, 2 Russian strategic heavy bombers, Tu-95 and 160s, have launched cruise missiles hitting the territory of Ukraine from Krasnodar Krai of Russian Federation airspace. He said also for the first time from the start of the armed aggression, bombs were dropped by long-range bombers, the Tu-22 M3. The airstrike took place hitting Mariupol. It is believed that Russian forces are attempting to secure a corridor that stretches from Mariupol to the Crimean Peninsula as the war for Donbass region heats up. Moltozanik described there are still major street battles happening in and near Mariupol, which before the war had nearly 500,000 people. the use of long-range bombers could signal the start of a new Russian strategy. The Kremlin has recently admitted it suffered bigger than expected casualties, with many analysts pointing out that so far Russia has been restrained when it comes to major bombing raids on Ukrainian cities, not like we did in Iraq. It also becomes evident early that Russia's military appeared to be restraining its use of air power, resulting in many instances of unprotected tank convoys being ambushed with often foreign-supplied anti-tank missiles such as the Javelin. So this is the information coming in that Russia now is using their heavy strategic bombers in the area. And I'm trying to see what else we have. I'm just going through these articles right now to see what we got. So let me show you this. This has nothing to do with Ukraine, but it has something to do with our dear leader, Mr. Ice Cream Cone. We showed you a video of Saudi Arabia actually making fun of Joe Biden. I don't know if you remember that from a couple of days ago, if you were on our live chat, but Saudi Arabia did a Saturday Night Live skit of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and it went viral. We showed it, but YouTube made me take it off. But Joe Biden had a speech the other day, folks, and he actually turned around and tried to shake people's hands that wasn't there. He was lost and confused, and he was looking around. They finally walked to the door. But I'm not going to show you the video, but I'll just show you the news report here so you can see it. Well, it's not on your screen, is it? All right, let me show you on your screen. So this is what happened to Joe Biden. It says Biden shakes hands with thin air after North Carolina speech. You can see him. He's putting out his hand right here, and there's nobody there. Then he turns around and faces the American flag and does the same thing. He finally walks to the entrance. But, you know, folks, you know, really, how did somebody like Joe Biden become president of the United States? I mean, really, folks, he's got dementia. I mean, Joe Biden has Alzheimer's and dementia. How did the American people elect him as the president of the United States? This is what we have running our government right now. The guy cannot remember a lot of things, folks. He has these episodes where he goes blank and he doesn't even know where he's at. But yet his finger could be on the nuclear button. Folks, we're in trouble. United States, we're in trouble. We were in trouble when Trump was president, but we're